Okay, good morning, everyone. We can get started now. I think we're up to 50 plus viewers, so appreciate everyone taking the time out of their busy schedules to join our proactive video webinar. This is an exciting technology. This is something that we've been at the foray in the past probably 4 or 5 years now, but in recent history, really putting a push on this. We're seeing a lot of our clients showing interest in this technology. So I do want to introduce our uh, two guest speakers and panelists this morning. I'll be acting as host. We'll go through a series of questions. And at the end of this presentation, we'll have some time for our viewers to submit questions. There should be a chat where you can submit questions, Q&A, at the bottom of your screen. So feel free to submit a question, and at the end we'll get to have some time for Q&A. So I'd like to present Jonathan and Chris, who are our proactive video monitoring experts. If we can bring them up on the screen. Great. Awesome. So Chris Cullen is a business development director with our monitoring partner. Chris has 2 decades of experience in the security business, most recently in his proactive video sales role. Jonathan Potvin is executive vice president based out of Montreal. Jonathan has extensive experience in the proactive video monitoring space and over 2 decades in the security business. So welcome, Chris and Jonathan. So I'd like to start with you, Chris. Proactive video monitoring has been at the top. It's been really a big industry topic for the past couple of years. But traditional security cameras have been around for I'd say decades. Can you just maybe explain what's the difference between proactive monitoring versus what we consider traditional video surveillance?
Yes, and it's definitely a good question. A lot of this is answered in the subject that we're talking about today when we're talking about proactive video monitoring versus just a camera system that has, as you said, a traditional camera that has a camera that's there but not being supported through monitoring. Traditional cameras, this is a reactive model. So somebody has potentially already gained access to a location, and at that point, a monitoring center, they are able to respond, but potentially that person has already have access and penetrate a location. Through a proactive means, like through a camera system, we're monitoring and we're proactively responding before theft has occurred. So we are catching somebody as they're coming onto the property before they've gained access to a building. And from that point, when we respond, we're responding through, say, a speaker or something so that they can know that we can see them, that somebody is watching them, somebody is on the way to stop them from what they're doing, and ideally they're going to run away, they're going to leave before any theft has occurred.
Yeah, no, it's a big game changer, right, from the traditional surveillance where you're going to get a recording of the crime happening versus actually being proactive in this case and deterring the crime from happening in the first place. I think one of our security specialists has kind of coined it as, would you rather have a souvenir of the event happening, or would you actually like to make an arrest? And I think that's really the key differentiator between proactive video monitoring and traditional surveillance. Um,
100%.
so there, I know there's a lot of different products on the market in recent history that are in the product video space. What are some key criteria or product selection tips that you would give to an end user? So when they're looking for a proactive video monitoring provider or partner, um, what are the things that they should look for? Are there specific whether it's features in a system or just in terms of product specs that they should consider when exploring proactive video? No worries.
So I'll split this question in two, and we'll start with by saying that we always say that there's three pillars for proactive monitoring to be a success in the long run, and the three pillars are the design, are the service agreement, so making sure that the partner will continue to support well the equipment to make sure that it's always performing at its best. And the third one, it's the operations. Operations are the operators, how we're handling the video events, etc. So I'll take the time here to explain a little bit about the design, because I think that question goes really with the design. And there's definitely not just one product that would fit everything. And just a good example that I could say is yesterday we were with a manufacturer of cameras that some of you might know, which is called Axis, and they showed to us a camera that was utilized, which had a program inside the camera for Uber Eat. The issue that they were having is that when some people would say, I didn't get the right food, it would become very complicated to go back on the recording. So what they did is a very simple app, which every transaction, they put all the food inside the bag, and there's a ticket. And on that ticket, there's a unique number. So then they can just go back, type that ticket number that's associated with the transaction, and see everything that was put in the bag. So to get back to that question, I think that the first most important thing is the design, and that in that design is understanding how far the customer, so you guys, will need to go to fix all the pains that you're having. And by doing so, you will choose the proper products slash solution to be able to go that far. Often, what we'll see is we'll see that we're going to go start with a basic product because we think that's going to fulfill one single thing. And then a year later, we have to kind of rip this out and restart from scratch. So I really think that by choosing the proper product, it really goes with what are the needs and how far do we want to bring it to. There is obviously all sorts of AI, and it's getting better and better where we're utilizing now AI on the cloud. So nowadays, it's getting more common that we can use a camera that has no specific AI and we can add it after, but it's not always the case. So it's good to start with the needs, understanding what is the product, so the VMS, the recording solution, what are the products, so I can go that far. And in these products, there are products for QR code for access control. There are products for LPR for controlling parking gates. There's facial recognition to create also access of employees for specific location or areas in the business. So even by taking of AI, we can go as far as access control and a lot of other things. And the reason that we try to bring this that far is because the more you guys do by automating with products, the better it's going to be for us or the management of those monitoring events to be able to handle them, and for overall having a less pricey monthly recurring revenue. Obviously, the more essential or operations will handle, the most expensive it will be. The more you can automate with product, the cheaper it will get in the end run. So there's a whole kind of design thing that it's very important to take the time with your trusted represented to go over all your needs, talk with them, chat, and then start your design.
Yeah.
I'll just say a couple of business case where you can apply this. So obviously, securing specific areas, managing people, such as video intercom. So to see who you have in front of you, we have a lot of like buildings that are people will just come at any time and they want to go in because they need to access a parking. And it might look a little surprised, but sometimes we have to identify the person, see if he looks like he's really a person that wants to go get his car and let him in. So video intercom can be very interesting for door control. Obviously, for controlling parking, so piggyback, so cars following a car, creating auto talk downs for certain areas, so we can have a camera that picks up someone. We do an automated voice talk down, and the person will get scared, will leave, or even emergency intercom. So for areas where there might be more risk, you can have an emergency intercom where people can just press and ask for help. There's virtual guard tours that we can go and look for specific things. So as a person would walk around an area, we can do the same thing with cameras, and we can ask the operators for anything. Is there water on the floor? Is there people smoking inside? Is there garbage at some place? Are there people maybe moving stuff at night when they're not supposed to? Obviously, monitoring sensors all across, so door open, any sort of sensors where we can then have a visual on it can be monitored. And some benefits that I'll just highlight. So obviously nowadays, I think that it's pretty much everyone know this how hard it is in Canada to have good labor. So obviously, finding good labor that can support your system is not always easy. Making the building intelligent with all of those devices that are connected, especially with the video, you can have data at your fingertips, which when it's a human, you kind of have to ask him, like, what have you seen? What have you done? And right now, with all of those technology, we can track in a very efficient way pretty much anything. Obviously, open after hours, so we can sometimes extend the schedule of people being able to go inside a building. For some tenants, for you guys, maybe there's some building managers in you guys. Obviously, technology tenants, they like it. They like to go in a building and see all these nice intercom, these video intercom, these cameras everywhere, and know that it's available for them. So it can be very good also even for your tenants to raise your price. We've seen this. We've seen building manager literally building technology to be able to raise their price as years will come.
Hmm.
Safe space. Don't have to say much more. I mean, there's cameras. People might feel safer when there's surveillance around. People can even do voice talk down inside, and this can create a safer space. Cleaner property. I've said it before. We can look for specific things like garbage or anything that can go off in the building. We can do a virtual guard tour and see about it. Liability. When you have a security agent inside a building, he can be attacked during nighttime. Our operators obviously are not on site, so they won't be attacked. Lowering costs and redundancy. You have a security operations center already. You have operators. It can break down. A second monitoring center can be a nice way of creating a redundancy. And that's going to be it for now.
Awesome. Thanks. Yeah, and I think the key, and I just wanted to put it in my own words because this is really informative. So, when you're picking a video monitoring provider, you mentioned about the design being super important, and I think that's where we've even in our early days, designing proactive video monitoring, really appreciated that you need to design these systems properly for them to be effective. Number two, you mentioned is product selection. I think that's where, through kind of our research and development team, picking the right product and right security cameras for the job, right? You can't just take generally any camera on the market and hope that it's going to be a good fit for a proactive video solution. And then you mentioned like making sure that the monitoring station is specialized in this. This isn't something that generally any monitoring station can do. Even with some of our own older stations where they were just strictly monitoring burglar or fire alarms, very, very different than someone who is now trained to monitor video. So I think that having the specialized operator team, making sure the product selection is correct, and making sure that the sales like security consultant can design the system properly. And that's something that we've taken an extra step to make sure that all three of those pillars are done correctly so that the client ends up with a good product. And so you mentioned about the building maintenance and a bunch of other use cases. Chris, like what are some, in just layman's terms, like what are some use cases where we're seeing a lot of businesses or companies take advantage of proactive video monitoring?
Yeah, so our operations center probably has many stories because this is something that we see daily, weekly. Even just remembering back when there was an incident when intruders broke into just a standard, a commercial building. They were with plans of stealing copper electrical wiring. The surveillance system did exactly what it was supposed to. It picked it up. We were able to respond by sending the police. When the police arrived, the intruders noticed it and quickly tried to hide. They even went to the point where they slipped into a cargo container near the back of the building, assuming that this would be enough, that they wouldn't be seen, that they would get away with it. Thanks to the fact that we had not only the video of the incident of them starting to break in, but also we're able to follow them through the camera system to be able to know exactly where they were. We were able to pinpoint exactly for the police where to walk, where to go, and sure enough, they were able to open that container door and catch them. So it's truly a day and night difference in power to be able to have this kind of service to be able to stop this kind of theft.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can only imagine, like, 'cause, historically they would have maybe had a video surveillance system. It would have watched this crime happen, and all of their stuff would have been gone. So Monday morning they show up and it's kind of too late, right? So um, I really appreciate these use cases. Would you say there's any particular industries or kind of use cases? I know outdoor assets for us, at least, were one of the hardest things to protect historically. Like, we used to have, if it's in a building, well, at least we could put a door contact or a motion sensor or a glass break to at least provide some early, notification that, hey, someone's breached the premise. But when you had an outdoor parking lot, for example, or an outdoor facility where you were storing, whether it was construction material or vehicles, pretty difficult to protect that. And I think that's where, proactive video monitoring can really step in. Like, do you have any use cases of protecting something outside?
This is kind of going back to a lot of different scenarios. But if you're looking at anything, as you said, an unsecured location that's outside, you have a construction site where there's lots of very valuable material that's out there that would look really great in somebody's truck to be able to drive away with it.
Yeah.
But even anything with any cars or vehicles, unfortunately, there's some serious crime happening throughout the country where it's a big business. Parts of vehicles, catalytic converters, whatever somebody can get their hands on is just going missing constantly. Which, when we're talking about all these things, the theft is huge because you're talking about a loss of material, a loss of part. But then the post of theft. So how long is it going to take to be able to get a replacement part through supply chain? How
Right.
long is a piece of equipment, a vehicle, or something going to have to now sit idle until a replacement part is there? How do you factor in that loss and how long that's going to be sitting there instead of being sold, moved, used for a building, whatever the case may be?
Hmm.
Um, Outside is big, but when you're looking at even things like jewelry stores or things that have places that have a lot of valuable goods, materials that are inside.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, thieves are very crafty, and if they can find a way to be able to go through vents or through the top of a building and
Hmm.
get around potentially setting off door contacts or things like that. So very sensitive areas that are inside, it's not immune from being able to have this kind of surveillance.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Well, and I think historically, really the only way that we could think of protecting outdoor assets was to hire physical security guards, right? And so Jonathan already talked about the labor shortage, and with the inflation and the cost of hourly wages for security guards are continuing to rise. We're seeing that north of now $35 an hour for a on-site security guard can be pretty expensive, right? You're looking at probably in the neighborhood of at least $10,000, $12,000 a month to have an on-site. That's one security guard. If you need two because you have a big property, well, that cost just doubled. So putting in a proactive video monitoring system like we're talking about, I could imagine that would be a fraction of the price. And I think ballpark, I think we're seeing about a 90%, 80 to 90% cost savings compared to traditional security guards. So super cost effective. And from at least what we've seen, probably more effective in many ways, right? Where if you have a physical security guard, they have two eyeballs, 2 feet. They can only be in one place at one time. Versus if you have a multi-acre property, you could have technically a dozen cameras protecting that with eyes on site at all times.
Well
That's
said.
um, one thing that we've been faced with, and it's a good question. Privacy concerns with live monitoring. Who has access to my cameras? Is this an invasion of privacy? You're listening to the audio if there's a talk down speaker? What are the privacy concerns? And I guess how are we being conscious of those when it comes to installing cameras and doing live monitoring for these facilities?
It's a very good question, and in the industry within Canada, I think it's an evolving concept and law, whatever we want to say it, that's continuing to evolve throughout the country. PAPITA is one of the main federal laws. There is a website that you can go to be able to learn more about this, to understand a little bit more. When it comes down to laws within the country, it's mainly around facial recognition and how that would reflect to public settings. or any kind of setting where you need somebody's permission before you can potentially do facial recognition, just due to privacy laws.
Mhm.
This is something, again, that's continuing to evolve. More than anything, if there is a company, a site that is planning on using something like facial recognition, it's always best to go back to a professional like Security One and just learn a little bit more about what you can do, what you can't do, and understanding what the law for that municipality, for that province is. Because for certain provinces, for certain municipalities, the rule is slightly different.
Okay.
Something I would point to is, and feel free to look it up, Canadian Tire store and group of stores in BC, Vancouver area that were found using facial recognition and using it in what was felt an inappropriate way. Unfortunately, something like this, it's public image. It was broadcasted over online. There was a news article about it. Multiple Canadian Tire stores were implicated for it.
Mhm.
So it's just an example of how really understanding that if you're going to use certain analytics of a camera, like facial recognition, you really have to understand the privacy laws that are associated with it.
Mhm. Makes sense. And the traditional proactive video monitoring product that we're talking about, I don't believe it uses facial recognition. I think it's more of an analytic clip based, which has a level of anonymity when it comes to just detecting person versus vehicle versus object. So does that technically this privacy concern doesn't really apply?
Yeah, this is definitely more geared towards facial recognition and
Right.
using that kind of facial recognition. Like, if, I mean, I'm sure we would all love to be able to know that if somebody stole something from our store, and if we know who that person is, that next time we would like to be able to know if that person
Yeah.
enters into the store. But you just have to really understand whether or not from a that analytic that is on that camera system, how it can be utilized.
Right.
Other analytics, like detecting a person versus a vehicle versus a license plate that maybe has, or a vehicle that's remained on your property for more than, say, 15 minutes, that you may want to be able to know about, because maybe a vehicle shouldn't be in a parking spot for more than 15 or 30 minutes. That's different.
Yeah.
But definitely how you're going to use, say, a person's face and that kind of analytic for something else.
Yeah. Okay. Makes good sense. Um, so proactive video monitoring is kind of one new aspect that we're talking about today. But how does one, they might have existing alarm systems, they might have access control systems on site. How does proactive video monitoring kind of tie into those existing security systems, and is there kind of like a comprehensive package? Is there integrations that you've seen that have proven to be effective, versus just something that's maybe standalone? So someone who's maybe invested in access control or traditional intrusion, how can they use those existing systems to aid in the proactive video monitoring space?
Okay. So maybe we can bring up slide 5. So this is just an overall. This is not all encompassing, but based on the building, based on the site, based on the setting, there's a lot of different components that can be tied into security system, but then also protecting or supporting the rest of the building. When you're looking at a location that has an alarm system, you can also tie in that when the alarm system goes off, it also can come with a video verification of the cameras. So
Okay.
protecting, understanding that the alarm from inside went off, why? So using those cameras to be able to help to really understand if there's somebody that is there that shouldn't be. Then continuing to add on to that. So adding a remote video monitoring for the outside. So not necessarily relying on only the inside motion detectors or door contacts to be able to protect the building. So now adding that proactive service. So you still have the alarm monitoring. However, if somebody comes onto the property, as we've been talking about today, we will know about it before any kind of um, building break-in has occurred. Adding something like cloud analytics that Jonathan has been talking about being able to boost or add a different layer of protection to your existing cameras. Perhaps adding D, a virtual guard tour. So if you have sensitive areas that maybe somebody they sleep in certain areas, they vandalize in certain areas, and you would, instead of having a physical guarding company to be able to patrol a location and periodically check in on that location, which is costly, this can all be done virtually through the camera system. Adding other services like hosted access control, managing your access control system. These are all different add-ons to help support your building, support your infrastructure, and instead of having a person having to manage your access control system, we are potentially helping um, to manage that for you. We're adding remote concierge. So if your building has a front entrance, or let's just say some type of push button intercom system, where right now there's a person that's sitting there, and they're the ones that when somebody approaches the building or goes into the entrance, they're the ones to talk to the person. Maybe they're the ones to communicate through the intercom system. That's again a very costly, a very big resource, that to be able to have a person dedicated that would be sitting there doing that every day, all day, maybe even 24 hours a day, for the building. Why not have that through a virtual means? So a
Mhm.
huge cost savings, but in the end, you're receiving as good or hopefully better service, where there's somebody from, say, our end that is going to talk to the person, verify them the same way, say, the on-site person would have been able to do it. However, all of this is being done through a camera system and through that, say, intercom or push button display. Imagine if you have this building where you have a gate, where somebody approaches the gate, and again, there's somebody that maybe sits there and they have to talk to the person, verify who they are before they open up the gate. Kind of repeating my words, but this could all
Mhm.
be done virtually.
Right.
So again, instead of having that person having to do that, both your concierge and now your gate to the front of where the building is now being supported virtually, and all of these things are being done for you. Ideally, we're doing it at a fraction or a very good cost savings, and you're getting this done through a virtual means. To highlight one last thing, when you're looking at some buildings, they have elevators, and these elevators, just so that to highlight, rules have been changing with elevators. So the traditional elevator model, where somebody can push the intercom and somebody hopefully responds and talks to them, these are changing. So the ASME CSA B44 standards for new elevators that are being put in place or being updated now require somebody to be able to have a elevator that has more of a specialized intercom where you can talk to somebody that's visual and hearing impaired, but also has a camera component where ideally, if somebody does press or is trapped in an elevator, somebody is going to be able to not just talk to them, but they're going to be able to see if that person is unfortunately maybe lying on the floor, maybe something has happened to them and they cannot communicate. So more than anything, hopefully this helps to understand that from a building perspective, for a site perspective, again, not every site is going to require everything that we're talking about right now.
Mhm.
However, for depending on the need, it's not only you can take advantage of one option, you could take advantage of potentially every type of option that could be supported.
Yeah.
And not only is your building getting better overall service, but you potentially could be saving quite a bit of money by taking advantage of more than one service.
Yeah. Well, very, very interesting. I think, you think about it in the traditional sense of like, hey, how do I protect or secure my property? But there's some operational benefits, I think, to proactive video monitoring that maybe we haven't explored before. So it's definitely something that's super interesting. So um, just conscious of time here, I think we wanted to reserve some time for Q&A. So I appreciate your time, Chris and Jonathan, for joining us on this webinar. I'm sure there's lots more to talk about. So what did want to, Laura, I don't know if you have any of the Q&A that you can prompt us with. I don't know if that's Q&A here. Archived. Okay, so we got some questions coming in. Okay. So one that's kind of been brought up on that Let me just see here if I'm reading this properly. Um, so let's speak about construction theft. I know we have a lot of viewers on the call in the construction space, building new properties. So, um, what are some of the best ways that we can protect or provide proactive video surveillance in a, let's just say, a construction or a new build? I know copper theft has been, pretty, lumber at one point. I know during COVID went through the roof. It was more expensive than gold. So, like, how do we protect construction sites or for those in the construction industry?
Joe, do you want to take that
I'll
one?
take this one. Yeah, perfect. So I'll say that there's two types of surveillance for construction site. There's one we could call it alarm video verification, and the second one is live monitoring. And I'll explain the difference. The most important part is when there is something on the site and the AI detects that object. First of all, that it can show a bounding box, which is a red rectangle around that object to the operator. So this, I would say, it's one of the most important component because often it might be a little bit dark, might be hard for the operator to see it. But most importantly, when we get the pre-alarm, so it's a small clip that gets generated upon a detection, it's very easy to see the story, to see where that person is now hiding. The second, or I should say the third component, is the voice talk down. If we also have the live video, so we can assess if there is a person, and when we're doing the voice talk down, that person left the site, then those components, I would say, creates a success for construction site. And there is a big, I would say, big fight that we're having constantly to explain these components, because obviously there is ways to make this at a much cheaper cost, and that we also offer, but that are really not the same level of security. So the alarm video verification, generally, we don't have the metadata. So the bounding box, we don't have the live. So to do a voice talk down, there's no need because we can't confirm the person left.
Hmm.
So we really think that live video monitoring, which is also generally what the insurance contracts are writing, are extremely important to understand what it is and to implement it this way.
Right.
And then there's all the components that we can use that are varying. So it could be a box, a security box where you have a strobe. When there's a detection, the strobe goes on. We can do a voice talk down. So then there's all sort of technology which security ones are already trained on, which we can even add more value on these kind of scenarios components, if I could say.
Right. And even for those sites without power or without internet connection, can you speak to maybe some of the because that was one of the bigger concerns that we would always have. You may not have, the site may not be ready for power, or it may not be ready for an internet connection. Are there products available that could fill that niche?
Certainly. And there's always a little drawback. So obviously the benefit is having no power, no internet. We have a device that's triggering events. Generally, those devices will have a shorter length of detection coverage compared to commercial product that are connected to a power source, and that we have a strong LTE connection, then we can generally apply cloud analytics, which will give us a much bigger coverage. So the advantage is really having a component that needs no power source. Think about smaller coverage, great detection, so it works very well. You can even do talk downs because there is live video. On the other spec of it, you have power, we should use it, and then we can have bigger coverage, less cameras for you guys, cheaper price per month.
Makes sense. And so we had another question here coming in. You mentioned something about insurance companies now are getting, they're smarter. They're becoming more aware and conscious of proactive video and kind of writing that into their contracts as a requirement. Um, is there discounts that you've seen companies receive for installing these types of services, or is it this is more of just a prerequisite? We won't insure your property unless you have proactive video monitoring on site.
Yes. So we have not. I don't know if you know, Chris. Maybe you want to answer this one.
It's kind of it's a very open question because some insurance companies have started to understand the difference, and they've started to understand that even from an insurance side, it is much better for them, premium and theft wise, to be able to give an incentive for any company to have proactive video surveillance. However, there are still a lot of companies that have not completely understood it, that still look at this as kind of a reactive service, maybe similar to maybe others. And the more we are working within the industry, the more we're working with insurance companies, we are trying to lobby towards having all of these companies to really understand if any customer opts to go with this, they really should get a better heightened premium towards a reactive model. What I would kind of suggest is any customer that does follow up with their insurance company, if that company is not providing some type of a discount, that they should let Security One know about this. Maybe even let us understand which company it is, because we do more and more want to work with some of these insurance companies to make sure they understand that we're here to help them as well. Because
Mm,
obviously, the more we're securing properties, the more we are preventing these kinds of thefts from occurring. It only helps an insurance company.
yeah. No, makes good sense. Yeah, I know we've seen some contracts that have come across where they've really specced out, proactive video surveillance as a requirement. So it's interesting to see that some companies are really at the cutting edge of this and adopting it. But yeah, I sometimes just a conversation with your insurance company about it and seeing if there's other options or discounts available. So good, a really good question. Um, Last question here, because I think we promised it would be wrapped up by quarter two. So, question is monitoring on all the time? I wouldn't want to be getting calls during the day when my team is on site. So, um, good question.
So,
So
yeah.
how I guess more of a question around how do you arm and disarm these systems? What are their schedules available? How do you ensure that we're not sending video clips, false alarms essentially back into the monitoring station?
I'll take this one, Chris.
Yeah, definitely you're
Yeah.
the
All
expert
right.
with this one.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. And it's a really really good question that we are really pushing hard on customers to understand this, because a site can be a nightmare or it can be a lot of fun for everyone, and it really, that component is one of the most important one. So there's a lot of ways to do it. So you can use mobile application. There are schedules that can be used, and this really goes up with talking with you guys, understanding what are the needs, who will go off hours, and there's a lot of things that goes into that consideration to choose the best product. There's generally about 3 or 4 different ways. They're all pretty good. It's just that some offers more advantage than some others. But this is really, I would say, the majority can use one app, and then other ones is case by case. So this would go back a little bit like your design, but it's a really, really good question.
Mhm. Awesome. Yeah, and I think the app control is interesting that that's now available. So someone popping back on site, they might have forgot something. It's after hours. Normally the system's armed. How do they disarm the system? So using the app, I know that that's definitely a game changer when it comes to just making it easier for them to avoid that false scenario. So, and schedules, I think that's another key component of this, right? You have a set. Usually, most businesses have set office hours. So, kind of working within your business hours and just trying to say like, all right, well, normally if someone's here after 8 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock at night, they really shouldn't be. So let's make sure that the system or the lot is armed and so kind of just keeping those and it's something that can be tweaked over time, right? If you have different hours or holidays or things like that, I'm sure we could adjust that. So yeah, we're coming close to the end here, so I appreciate everyone's time and attention. It was really great, so thank you again, Jonathan and Chris, for joining us today. I will highlight our we do have our phone number and email addresses for future questions, or if you're interested in a kind of a site evaluation, we'd be happy to help you. So in Eastern Ontario, reach out to the Alarm Systems team. In Western Ontario, please reach out to Security One, and we'd be happy to help. So again, thanks everyone for your time today, and we'll look forward to hosting. We'll just try to usually do these maybe once a month or once every other month as our new technology series. So thanks, Jonathan and Chris, again, and hope everyone has a great rest of your day.